Today we've got something sweet and smoky. We've got this whiskey right here, the Ruby Port edition of the Silkie Irish whiskey. So let me get it into the glass and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Now this is from the Sliabh Liag Distillery, but it's not their whiskey. This is a sourced whiskey that they have procured from a different distillery, most likely somewhere like Great Northern Distillery. They have got their own whiskey now started being released. The first batch of it came in this, I'll see if I can put a picture of it up there. It came in this really cool like cask bottle where it was glass on two sides and it was like a wooden cask around the outside, which is just like a cool kind of presentation. So they have got their own whiskey now hitting the market, but this is a sourced product from their Silkie brand. I've got another review of other Silkie whiskey. I'll put a link to that up there. There'll be a link down below which you can check out afterwards, but this here is the Ruby Silkie, named because it was finished in Ruby Port. It is, like I said, a blended whiskey, most likely from G&D. I did ask them a couple of questions and they answered some of the questions, but not all the questions. So it is a blended whiskey and it's made up of components that are between 4 and 7 years old, with a final finishing period in those Ruby Port casks of about 6 months or so. As you can see, that has had this really nice, rich impact on the color. Like, it's gone quite red, it's gotten quite ruby. This is not the regular version of it. This is the cask strength version of the whiskey. There are two versions of it. There's this one here at 62.5% alcohol by volume, and there's a regular version at 46%. But when I went into the shop to try and buy the whiskey, they didn't have the 46% version, so I just had to buy the cask strength version. I just had to do it. I had no other choice, and I'm really glad I did because it's got a lot of flavour. Now they have said that, because again it's a blended whiskey, it's made up of different components, and they weren't fully clear because they have two different blends. I've got the components here of the blends, which I'm going to read out to you, but like there's two different kinds, so I'll read them out to you. There's one that's made up of 35% grain whiskey in virgin oak, 35% grain whiskey in recharred oak, 13% triple distilled malt in bourbon casks, 13% double distilled malt in sherry casks, and 4% triple distilled peated malt in bourbon casks. But I think this one isn't that one, because they have another one that is a 70% grain whiskey aged in bourbon casks, 15% double distilled malt in sherry casks, and 15% triple distilled malt in bourbon casks. And when I go in for a nose on this, it's actually got quite a nice bit of like peaty, smoky character. So I think it is that one with a higher amount of peated whiskey in it. Now, when they say that the whiskey was peated, it was peated to 55 parts per million, which is fairly high on the kind of the scale of peated whiskey. It's quite high, but when you triple distill something, you actually take away the parts per million, you take away that smokiness, you leave the flavour, but take away some of the bite. So it actually comes down to about 22 parts per million. So it's on the lighter side, but with a lot of that peaty character from the original spirit still staying through, just without that kind of, maybe some of those earthier or more biting notes. And that's kind of all there is to say about it. It is coming in, like I said, natural colour, it's non-chill filtered. They have got a bunch of other kind of finishes. If you want to see me review those whiskies, leave a note down in the comments below. But right now, let's go in for the nose on this here Ruby Silkie Cask Strength Edition. Cheers. Oh, this is really, like, as you can see, I've had a good bit of it now. This is really nice. This is really warm and like inviting on the nose, but it's got this nice backbone of like peat smoke. It's got this really nice backbone of like strength to it, and it's got this nice flavor coming through. Like, the Ruby Port casks have had a huge impact on this whiskey because it's got these bright red cherries, red like raspberries, strawberries, all those red fruits you'd be expecting, on top of this like vanilla cream flavor from all that bourbon cask. For me, it kind of reminds me of like a Victoria sponge. I'll put a picture of that kind of cake up there if you don't know what a Victoria sponge is, but essentially it's nice sweet like grain cake, like a nice sweet cake with raspberry or strawberry jam and some like vanilla buttercream, and then cake again. So you get this really nice sweet grain character backed up by a really nice rich vanilla buttercream and bright red fruit jam, and that's all with this kind of wrapper of smoke. Not like earthy peat, not like herbal peat, but just this nice bit of smoke behind it. The more I kind of sit with it, the more I'm also getting this kind of like buttery note. I know I said like vanilla buttercream, but also like actually kind of like buttered popcorn, like that kind of again, sweet cooked roasted grains with creamy butter on top of it. And again, just a really nice balance between that kind of creamy, buttery, vanilla notes you get from like the bourbon casks, the grain sweetness, and that port character, again, all with that nice kind of backbone of peat. So I'm going to go in for the palate now and see what changes. Cheers. Again, it's got that Victoria sponge, but smoky. It's got that butterscotch, but smoky. The jam, the popcorn, all those flavors, but smoky. Like on the nose, you get the peat. On the palate, you really get that peat, but it's a really, like I said, kind of sweet peat, like a soft peat. It's not super strong. It's not biting you. It's not kicking the door in and saying, I'm a peated whiskey. It's just there, really present and really like, okay, yeah, I'm a peated whiskey, but I'm still letting you taste the other flavors in here. Now, it is, like I said, 62.5% alcohol by volume. And for me, I find when alcohol goes up, the peat flavor also comes up. So that might be why the peat flavor is a little bit stronger here. Maybe on the 46% version, it's a little bit more muted. But for me here, I've got a really nice hit of peat, but with all those other flavors really nicely like balanced against each other. That triple distillation for the peated whiskey probably really helped, because that would have taken away a lot of that bite, a lot of those sometimes barbecue medicinal notes. And because this here, you got a sweet port, you got that sweet bourbon cask influence, you don't want those medicinal casks. You want it all kind of be going in the same direction. I think that has been achieved here. It's really, really nice. I'm gonna go in for a second sip to see what else I can find, but it's just a really nice little whiskey. Cheers. Second sip round, I actually got a little bit more of like the oaky. Yeah, definitely I got a little more of that oak character. A little spicy, like I wouldn't say cinnamon or clove, I'd actually say like white pepper. Like that little bit of tingle on my tongue. I'm actually getting a bit of peppery kind of spice notes to it, which I think is really nice. Again, it's not dominating though. It's like serving as like a counterpoint. Like you get a bit of peppery note, but always in the background you got that sweet red berries. I don't think I've talked about the red berries enough on the palate. Like you get cherries, raspberries, definitely strawberries, really nice, rich, juicy berries. Like if you're not familiar with port, Ruby port is like the younger kind of port, quite bright, fresh red berries, you know, those really nice red, fresh berries. Tawny port, it's a little bit more aged, it's a little more caramelized, a little bit more oaky, but here the Ruby port gives you those really nice fresh berry notes, and it's come through really well. So I'm going to go in again, this time focus on the finish and see what lasts the longest. Cheers. Okay, so the finish I would say is medium to long, like it's on that longer side. Again, this is the cask strength version, so maybe the 46% version will be a little bit softer, will be a little bit lighter on the finish, but for me, on the finish, I've got this nice kind of long walk to it where I have the berries up top, they kind of fade away. The creaminess is still lingering on with that peat smoke. I got a little bit of like, as I'm breathing, I get that smokiness, but I've still got that creamy butterscotch, toffee, like vanilla buttercream, that kind of flavor is lingering on with just that little touch of like the peppery note on the tongue, just lingering on a little bit there into the finish. There's no real, again, 62.5% alcohol, no real alcohol burn. If you're not used to cask strength whiskies, this might have a bit of a burn, but for me, I think it's just really nicely incorporated into the whiskey. Before I give my final thoughts on this whiskey, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews like this every Wednesday. I put out cocktail recipes featuring whiskey every Friday, and I will have a cocktail recipe featuring this whiskey this Friday. So if you want to see that, make sure you check back. Leave me a comment down below in the comments and say what kind of whiskies you think I should review in future. But now, my final thoughts. I really like this whiskey. I have become a bit more accustomed to peat. I'm quite liking the kind of peat smoke, especially when it works with the whiskey, where you're not just tasting peat, you're not just tasting smoky whiskey, where actually you're getting a bit of a character to it. The peat is almost like counterpointing the other flavors in the whiskey, and I think here that's come through quite nicely here, because you get those red berries with the smoke, you get the creamy butterscotch grains with the smoke. So I think it comes through really well. If you're not a fan of peated whiskies, you might not like this, because obviously it's got a nice bit of peat to it. Also, I really like port finishes on whiskey, so for me it's got that light sweet peat, and it's also got a really nice port finish. So yes, I definitely like this whiskey. If you've the same kind of palate that to me, I'd say you really like it. Again though, if you're not a fan of peat, you probably won't like it, but it's just a nice little whiskey. I might in the future do like a wrap up of like 5 really good peated Irish whiskies. This would probably feature on that. If you want to see a video like that, let me know down in the comments below. But for me, for right now, I'm going to keep on enjoying this. I'll see you next time. Sláinte.